Hello, this is Saturday, October 17th, 2020, and I am hoping you have a good day so far. I was just thinking about how in the last few years, YouTube has pretty much become my go-to when it comes to consuming entertainment or consuming any kind of content, as they say now. Like I was somebody who was born in the mid 70s, and so TV, watching TV, watching TV shows, following TV shows, all that kind of stuff. Like growing up was a thing that we did, and there's a I can I have like these little strange quirks. I get very emotionally invested in TV shows and things like that. So sometimes I get just too intensely involved to the point where I just get just it's I get just too emotional about things, or it's just I get it just feels too much for me. So a lot of the times I don't for a very long time now I have not watched TV shows, especially when I don't know how to describe it exactly, but if there are sort of like one-off type things, like for instance, or like very short things, or that they don't come with like really deep sort of material, I'm all about it. So something like Sherlock from BBC, they're intense, but they're like mini movies, and they're limited, and they don't need me to keep going back over and over and over again, and just I don't know what it is exactly, but has I think it has something to do with my high sensitivity, which is something that I can talk more about a little later time. But all that to say, there are a few things that I have watched, mostly movies, and mostly things that are quite limited in terms of scripted programming. But the majority of the time, I actually watch a lot of YouTube. And one of the things that I really actually enjoy about YouTube is that there's a lot of diversity in the content. And my theory about it is that when it came to network television, or things like even Netflix or HBO or whatever, there are people who are in these hierarchical positions who get to choose what's going to be made and what's not going to be made. And, I was talking about like growing up in the 80s and watching TV. I didn't grow up watching television shows or even seeing movies that had people that looked like me, or whose frame of reference was something that I could relate to. So when I discovered YouTube and realized that people were choosing themselves, I mean, they didn't care. They didn't need for somebody to say, it's okay for you to make this kind of content. It's okay that you don't look a certain way. It's okay that you talk about what you want to talk about and show what you want to show and talk about your experiences. This is actually one of the reasons why I think it's also why I really wanted to tell my story here, is because as much as like YouTube has had its growth and its own, complexity and algorithms and what's shown and what's not shown, all that kind of stuff, it still doesn't stop people from creating things and putting things out there and sharing it. And I think that it's an amazing thing, because for the last few years, I've been able to watch the kind of things that I never would have had the choice to have watched growing up, or even 10 years ago. So all that to say, this morning I was watching a channel called Tabby Eats, and they are a channel where they talk about food, travel, and miscellaneous things that are from Japan. And I was just watching this one video this morning where one of the guys in it, he was eating something called Ochazuke. I'm Japanese, by the way, in case I haven't talked about that. And I think it's an interesting thing. Like, I was born in Japan. I immigrated to Canada with my parents. I'm an only child when I was 6. And so the first 6 years of my life was in Japan. And so there's a lot of my sensitivities, a lot of my sort of contexts, I think, are like the foundation of those things are Japanese. And even though my ability to be able to speak Japanese is very minimal, I speak like a 6-year-old child for the most part, which is really, and I keep saying this, I'll talk about it some other time, but I will definitely talk about this because one of the things that is really complicated is that I have a really phenomenal relationship with my mom because my mom is an incredible lady. She's going through a lot now. And part of like the fact that we have like this really great relationship is in some ways is capped by the fact that we have like this language barrier. My mom strictly speaks Japanese, and I'm mostly English with some Japanese, but like I'm not able to talk about a lot of the things that I would talk about. For instance, this whole video right now, that what I've said so far, I don't know how I would go about talking about that in Japanese. I have no idea. And so there's a lot of things that I would want to talk to my mother about that she doesn't, like I don't have the capacity to be able to communicate it, and therefore she doesn't have the ability to understand me in that way. And yet, like, we have this really great relationship. But imagine, I think, I keep thinking to myself, like, wow, like if she actually sort of knew some of these kinds of details about me, or like I was able to kind of share some of my thoughts and feelings with her, like I wonder, what the relationship would look like then. But, one of the things that, it's so important for me to be able to talk about here is, like I said, about love and care, and how even though there are sort of like some of these really key things that it feels like these key things are missing from being able to communicate within a relationship, it's still a remarkable relationship, Like, we love each other so much, and we kind of get each other on a level, I guess, that doesn't require words, and that's pretty amazing, right? And yeah, I mean, my mom moved back to Japan over 20 years ago, so we see each other very little, but we communicate on a regular basis, like on a very regular basis, and we talk and we say and share like kind of silly things that we could understand with one another. But as I go through this experience, one of the things that is crucial for me is to have her come over and to spend as much time with me as possible. And hopefully while I'm still pretty well, and that is like one of the things that I'm aiming for. I don't know how that I'm gonna make that happen quite yet, but that's one of the things that we're working on. Anyway, I wasn't actually thinking of going into all of this, but my whole point really being is that I'm, was like, I grew up in Canada, and so most of my thinking, most of my understanding of things, most of the way that I structure my thoughts and feelings is based on, the context of growing up in an urban environment here in Canada. But the foundation of my first 6 years was laid in Japan. And especially since, getting this diagnosis, not in, in a place where, like, right now, anyway, as we grow closer to a point where I'm going to start cancer treatment, chemotherapy treatment, likely next Friday. I'm getting really nervous about things, and I'm leaning into my comfort stuff, right? And the comfort stuff is Japanese foods. And if you don't know a whole lot about Japanese food, apart from like sushi, teriyaki, and tempura or something like that, Japanese food is so layered and complex and broad, and how food is so much more a fabric of the culture than it might be here in North America. And I think that, folks from like European countries would understand that, other Asian countries would understand that. There's just something about food, how it's interwoven into culture. And also, I talk about love and care a lot. There's a lot of love and care in food. And I can speak specifically to Japan, that there is a lot of love and care when it comes to thinking about food, presenting food, providing food. And it could be very simple, but it can get also very complicated, as food can be. But so I was watching this video this morning of someone who it was the Tabby Eats channel, and I'd recommend their channel if you'd like to learn more about Japanese foods and travel in Japan. And one of the hosts of the video, he was talking about like waking up in the morning and having some kind of breakfast, and he had something called Ochazuke, which is like a rice porridge, but it's rice, and ocha means tea, and zuke means steeped, I guess. Ochazuke. So it's rice that's steeped in tea, and it's savory. And I love Ochazuke, and I have sort of like these Ochazuke instant packets that I probably should have pulled so that I can show it to you, but I didn't. And I had some rice left over from yesterday, so I was kind of wondering about what I was going to have for breakfast this morning. And as soon as I saw that, I thought to myself, like, that is perfect for today. So I started my day off with having some salmon Ochazuke, and it was delicious. It feels like so warm and comforting. So I'm feeling good starting off this morning, because I have some things I'd like to get done today. I don't know like how that's gonna go, but I woke up this morning with the tube hurting. I went to sleep yesterday with the tube hurting. In reality, the tube has been hurting since my appointment on Thursday. I don't know exactly why it is. My theory is that the nurse who redressed it on Thursday just did it in such a way that it was just uncomfortable. And the two previous experiences, I left feeling good about, like, it didn't hurt. And so I had just assumed that it was just going to be a temporary thing, that it was hurting when she redressed it. This is another nurse. So I've been there 3 times, and this is the third nurse that I'd seen. And I think I mentioned I didn't get her name or anything like that, but she had redressed it, and told me that, it's an open wound, so, there's going to be some pain involved. But the last couple times that I went, I left without pain. So I was hoping that it would just sort of like dull down, or maybe like she had like put like a swab, like a antiseptic swab or something like that that made it sting, and I was hoping that that would go away. And it hasn't. It's been uncomfortable. And but I asked her to provide me with some extra dressing just to be able to clean it up if I saw some leakage happening. So I've been just checking it the last couple of days. This morning when I woke up, there was some leakage that I saw from the tube site. So I'm glad that I had this extra material just to be able to change the dressing on it, so that the leak, so the dirty dressing is just going to be sitting there for the next couple of days. So it's hurting a little bit less now that I cleaned it up, but it's still a little bit painful. So I can't wait until Monday. I'm hoping that one of the other two nurses are back this week, because I had a good experience on Thursday too. It's just I didn't leave with pain the other two times. So I'm hoping that one of the other two nurses that I had dealt with previously will be there, so that the pain situation can be managed a little bit better. So that's what's happening with that. So this morning I am, like I mentioned, I redressed it, so I'm a little less uncomfortable, but I want to be able to go to my office this morning and do some cleaning up. I have someone who's one of my heart people who has offered to help me sell some things from the office, just to get all that stuff worked out. So I want to be able to organize things so that can happen. I was hoping that this was going to happen earlier this week. This didn't happen, so I'm hoping that I'll get some of that stuff done today, and just hoping that this discomfort in the tube site won't hamper any progress around that. So apart from that, you hear my fan of my computer working. That's what you're probably hearing. I'm sorry about that for the audio. Apart from that, I'm not going to be at the office for too long, but once I come back home, I think I'll continue to try to get some more stuff done around here, because there's quite a bit of stuff that gets accumulated. I think I've talked about this in a previous video too, and I don't want to be in a situation where I'm having to suddenly go through a bunch of stuff. I'd rather just be doing it gradually. And I also have like a large recliner chair in my office that I would like to bring home. We don't have a very big space here. We live in a condo apartment downtown Toronto, so we're pretty limited for space. But and especially since Joe deals in sort of like buy and sell stuff, he does stuff online and he does some stuff in person and stuff like that. So there's a lot of stuff around, and I know that for myself, I don't think of myself as a pack rat, but there are some things that I've accumulated over time. Just like to get rid of a lot of that stuff just to clear up space. Hoping to be able to do more of that today. So that's the plan. I was thinking there was maybe something else that I wanted to talk about. Can't remember. The thing that I think I'm focused on today, I talked about food. I love food, and I love good food. Not just like, and generally, like, I'm not a big junk food person or anything like that. I just like food that tastes great, and different kinds of food. I'm not a spice person, and I believe that also has something to do with the fact that I'm highly sensitive, because spice isn't a flavor for the most part, like at least spiciness, hot, sauce type stuff. That stuff generally isn't a flavor thing. It's generally a felt thing. Like it can burn you, this stuff, right? So I find that my palate is very, or like I don't know, just very, very sensitive to any kind of like heat type stuff. Like I can really, really feel it, and it's really uncomfortable. But when it comes to food and flavors, I love food and food with different great flavors of different sorts. So my understanding is that at some point with chemo, what can happen is that there's a loss of the ability to be able to taste. I'm not looking forward to that. In fact, it makes me very sad to think about. So the kind of the question that I have in my mind is, do I eat all the good stuff now so that I know that I can and taste them and to continue enjoying them for now while I can? Or, like to also try to think about taking care of myself in a healthful way. I'm a sugar kid, and sugar isn't good for me. I know that it isn't good for this illness. So, and I like rich things, buttery things, that kind of thing. So, but yeah, I mean, that's some of what I'm thinking about as well. Anyway, I have some cravings for today. Let's see if I'll end up being able to fulfill them. I'm either thinking noodles of some kind or meatballs. Like, so for some reason, I would like to have like a couple good meatballs. Anyway, that's where I'm at. So thank you for joining me for today. I hope you're having a great day. I send you love and care and chef's kisses, or one chef kiss, 2 chef kisses your way, because why not? And I hope that you show and feel love and care in your life today. And as always, if you want to send some of that my way, I would gladly accept it. And if you can also think shrinkage, if I'm still in treatment, that would also be fantastic as well. Thank you very much for joining me. If there's any more today, you'll see it after this video. If not, you'll see me tomorrow morning or at some point tomorrow, I'm sure. So have a good one, and I'll talk to you real soon.